Under a crescent moon, the dark swamp forest sits below a high mountain where a massive dragon silhouette looms. The eerie forest floor is damp, scattered with decaying wood and floating, glowing spores. On a large tree, a small, glowing yellow clump clings to the bark. Suddenly, the yellow clump opens two large, bulbous eyes and looks around, confused about where it is. He remembers his past life as a human scrolling his phone in bed. He was reading a manga called Legend of Mushrooms, wondering why it wasn't popular, before he fell asleep and died. Back in the forest, he realizes he has been reincarnated. His yellow, spiky body trembles as the shock hits him. He quickly calms down, accepting it as a common story theme, and decides to check his surroundings to survive. He calls out into the misty forest, asking if anyone is there, but regrets the noise when he notices menacing red eyes glowing from the shadows above. He sees giant mosquitoes over the swamp water and notes the area's miasma and uncomfortable dampness. Despite the gross environment, he confusingly feels physically comfortable and cozy. He wonders what exactly he has turned into, feeling like a strange lump of matter. Suddenly, a holographic system window flashes open in front of him. The screen displays his status. Level 1, Slime Mold, with the achievement Weak Creature, and trait Decomposer. A red alert warns his health is critical at 7:30 and autophagy has started, telling him to eat or hibernate immediately. The slime mold panics as his health ticks down, realizing he will die again if he doesn't eat soon. He frantically looks around for food to stop his health from dropping. His status screen highlights his Decomposer trait and repeats the warning to eat or hibernate. Realizing he's a decomposer, he figures he can eat the wood he's on and decides to try. He spreads his yellow body against the surface, and it naturally wraps around the wood. To his surprise, it tastes like a soggy biscuit. For 15 minutes, his body expands like a web across the bark, making gulping sounds as he eats. Finally full, he burps. A system alert says he is now level 2 with health restored to 35, but he cannot gain more XP from dead wood for an hour. He also receives a skill point and must choose between upgrading Decompose or Pulsation. Unsure what Pulsation does but willing to experiment, he assigns the point to it. The skill upgrades to level 3, and his yellow veins immediately begin to throb. He realizes Pulsation lets him move his internal protoplasm. He marvels that the knowledge of how to move appeared in his mind, even without a brain. Since the wood offers no more benefits, he decides to climb down and explore. He stretches his gooey body down the log, enjoying the magical feeling of shape-shifting at will. As he dangles, he spots a large purple mushroom growing on the ground. While a human might die eating it, his slime instincts tell him the mushroom is a delicacy. He slides across the ground, focusing on the shortest path to the meal. Despite their slowness, slime molds are efficient pathfinders, even better at optimizing routes than human engineers. Slime mold silently approaches a large purple mushroom, its stalk covered in strange red spots. Using his new movement skills, he slowly wraps his yellow tendrils around the stem and creeps upward. He reaches the mushroom's cap and spreads his body over it, ready to feast. As he eats the mushroom, he hallucinates being in a cafe. He sees himself approaching a pink-haired woman. His online date he calls Pure Little Mushroom. The woman, whose back is turned, asks if he is the man she was waiting for. In this fantasy, the protagonist appears as a slime-headed man in a suit, confidently confirming his identity. The fantasy becomes a nightmare when the woman turns. She's a terrifying monster with multiple eyes and a drooling mouth, beckoning him closer. He screams, terrified at being deceived by a toxic woman. Back in reality, a system red alert warns of a toxin invasion. The poison is rapidly consuming his nutrients. He panics, realizing the mushroom is poisonous as he watches his health points drop continuously. Thinking quickly, he tears off the part of his body attached to the mushroom to stop the toxin's spread. It works. The system confirms the toxin is eliminated, but he lost body mass and his max health permanently dropped to 17. Relieved but frustrated, he looks at the damaged mushroom. He decides to leave it for now. He slinks away, telling himself, General Slime is just retreating to fight again later. Desperate to recover his lost health, he finds a safe stump and starts eating the wood. After 15 minutes of feeding, the system says he gained no XP due to the time limit, but his health is fully restored. He burps, feeling satisfied and safe. Fully recovered and energetic, he sits atop the dead wood. He begins his new strategy to slowly whittle down the enemy. The tactic is to eat a bit of the poisonous mushroom, retreat to the wood to heal before the toxin kills him, and repeat the cycle. He approaches the mushroom again, calling this war of attrition Project Move Mountain. With renewed determination, he wraps his body around the mushroom's stalk, confident that with enough time, he can consume the entire thing. As he repeats the process, he hallucinates again. This time, the toxic woman representing the mushroom looks exhausted. He slaps handcuffs onto her wrists. Appearing as a man in a suit, he taunts her. He notes it is their 8th encounter and asks if she will give up. Back in reality, the mushroom is now a shriveled stump as he finishes eating the last of it. A system window confirms his success, awarding him experience points. He also acquires a new skill, Poison Resistance Level 1. He realizes this new resistance let him tolerate the poison longer during his attempts. However, he is disappointed he did not level up, as he expected significant experience from conquering the mushroom. Shaking off the disappointment, he sees many other strange mushrooms waiting. He decides to just keep eating his way through the forest. The protagonist continues his feast by eating a straw pipe mushroom. The successful decomposition raises him to level 3, and he notes the mushroom is safe. Wanting more power, he eats a dangerous monk's cap mushroom. The spicy toxic meal raises him to level 4 and upgrades his poison resistance to level 2. Unsatisfied with single targets, he covers a massive cluster of white mushrooms, declaring they will all become his nutrients. After eating the mass, he reaches level 5 and his health maxes out at 79. The system warns him he's hit a saturation point and won't get more experience from mushrooms for 24 hours. Full and satisfied, he burps and packs the remaining mushrooms on his back to take with him. He travels the forest with colorful poisonous mushrooms on his slimy body, humming about them being both emergency rations and armor. He compares his strategy to a crab using sea anemones for protection, believing his genius disguise will scare off any monsters that might eat him. Suddenly the wind picks up. A swarm of giant hornets buzzes overhead, carrying large chunks of red meat. The protagonist hides in the tall grass, hoping his poisonous camouflage works and the terrifying insects won't notice him. As one hornet flies low with its prize, a massive tongue shoots from the shadows, snatching the insect from the air. A giant green frog sits on a log, chewing the hornet. The protagonist freezes in fear, realizing another deadly predator has entered the area. However, the frog's attack provokes the swarm. The giant hornets drop their food and dive down to attack the frog. From his hiding spot in the grass, the protagonist watches the chaos. The frog is quickly overwhelmed by the insect's sheer numbers. One hornet drives its stinger into the frog's backside, while another latches onto its head with its mandibles for a vicious bite. The protagonist watches the battle from the grass, analyzing that a single hornet is weaker than the frog, but the swarm's overwhelming numbers bridge the power gap. His fear turns to opportunism as he hides, wondering if he can scavenge the remains. He reasons monster corpses would give far more experience than the wood and mushrooms he has been eating. The hornets swarm over the giant green frog, stinging and biting it relentlessly. In a desperate move for survival, the frog's throat glows purple. It unleashes a skill called Empowered Tongue, skewering multiple hornets in midair with great speed. However, the counterattack isn't enough. More hornets latch onto the frog's jaw, sinking their mandibles in as it croaks in agony. The protagonist continues to peek from the grass, witnessing nature's brutality. Suddenly, a massive shadow falls over the frog on the log. The frog looks up in confusion, barely making a sound, before a predator strikes with blinding speed, splattering blood violently through the air. A colossal bird with reddish feathers and a snake for a tail is revealed, having easily snatched the frog with its talons and tail. The terrifying creature lowers its head, its glowing red eye locking onto the trembling protagonist, seeing through his mushroom disguise. Demoralized by the deadly monsters, the protagonist gives up, sarcastically inviting the bird to eat him while complaining this game is unbalanced. The protagonist's reflection is visible in the bird's massive pupil, highlighting how tiny he is compared to this apex predator. The bird tilts its head, losing interest in the small, unappetizing blob, and pushes off the ground with great force to take flight. The wind from the bird's takeoff is so powerful it blasts the protagonist away. He tumbles through the air, taking 30 damage as his mushroom camouflage is scattered. The forest slowly returns to silence as the leaves settle, the massive threat now gone. Under the crescent moon, the vast mountain and forest landscape seems peaceful yet dauntingly large. The protagonist lands on a log with his few remaining mushrooms, shivering from the near-death experience. He analyzes his place in this cruel hierarchy, imagining a food chain with the giant bird at the top. Below are beasts, animals, and insects. He realizes he's at the very bottom, below even plants, on the same level as dirt. However, he realizes this low status is what saved him. The power gap between him and the monster was so wide that he wasn't even considered food, sparing his life. He opens his status window. He is a level 5 slime mold with 79 health, 13 unspent skill points, and improved skills. Decomposition, level 6, Pulsation, level 3, and Poison Resistance, level 2. Despite his rapid growth, he feels disheartened. After leveling up 4 times in one night, his title is still Weak Creature, and nothing has fundamentally changed. He questions his future, wondering how a simple slime mold can survive in such a dangerous environment. Overcome with exhaustion, he sighs, wishing this was all a dream and he could wake up safe in his bed. The night eventually passes, and the morning sun pierces through the forest canopy. Suddenly, a viscous green liquid drips down from the red mushroom cap above, landing directly on the unsuspecting slime. The substance acts like a strong acid, sizzling against the protagonist's yellow body and causing damage markers to pop up continuously as he cries out in pain. Desperate to escape the burning sensation, he triggers a new skill called Burst, which instantly stimulates his internal cytoplasm to generate a powerful thrust. The force of the skill launches him violently away from the log, scattering his collection of mushrooms everywhere as he crashes into the ground. He quickly recovers and looks back to identify his attacker, spotting a large white snail with a red shell slowly moving across the wood. The snail ignores the commotion and spits out a stream of acid liquor onto a nearby mushroom. The acid works instantly, dissolving the fungus into a green, soupy sludge. The snail happily slurps up the liquefied meal, while the protagonist watches in disgust, calling it a stinking snail. The snail finishes eating and looks up, its eye stalks twitching as it notices the angry slime mold. The protagonist is furious, thinking that while stealing food is annoying, dripping acidic saliva on his face and nearly disfiguring him is completely unforgivable. However, the snail just stares back with wide, innocent eyes, making a pitiful sound to appear harmless. The protagonist tries to maintain his anger, telling the creature not to play the victim or try to manipulate him with cuteness. The snail slumps down next to a mushroom, looking incredibly dejected and continuing to whimper sadly. Seeing the creature looking so pathetic, the protagonist's anger begins to fade. He reflects that they are both just fellow sufferers at the bottom of the food chain, wandering the world and trying to get a bite to eat. He wonders if he is being too harsh on the animal. Letting out a sigh, he decides to drop the issue. He tells the snail that he won't make things hard for it and that it can go ahead and eat, as there are plenty of mushrooms to share. The snail immediately perks up, cheering happily at the permission. As the acid snail happily slurps up the liquefied mushroom, the protagonist watches and begins to let his imagination run wild. He wonders if this situation is a classic friendship born from a fight trope found in shonen manga. He starts fantasizing about a future where they party up, combining their strengths to increase their survival probability. His delusion escalates to imagining them evolving into powerful humanoid warriors together, and eventually standing side by side to defeat a great demon king through the power of their bond. Convinced that companions are indispensable for survival, he decides to act. He approaches the white snail and proposes an alliance. Since they are both low-level monsters, he suggests they team up and look out for one another, promising to ensure the snail has plenty of mushrooms to eat. The snail responds with a cute sound, but instead of shaking hands, it suddenly vomits a massive stream of yellow acidic bile directly onto the protagonist. The attack catches the slime mold completely off guard. He takes 12 points of damage, dropping his health to 62. Writhe in pain, he harshly realizes that his fantasy was foolish. Monsters in this world do not care about feelings or friendship. There is only the simple, brutal relationship of eating or being eaten. Admitting he was fooled by the snail's pitiful appearance and realizing it is stronger than him, the protagonist decides to flee while the creature is momentarily busy eating the vomit. However, the acid snail looks up, noticing its prey is trying to leave. It immediately turns and begins to chase him, refusing to let the slime go. Desperate to survive, the protagonist spends his remaining skill points to upgrade his pulsation skill from level 3 to level 4. Yelling that he is using full power, he surges forward with newfound speed. The two slow creatures engage in a high-speed chase across the log. To the protagonist's frustration, he realizes that even with his upgrade, the stinking snail is matching his speed perfectly. The acid snail prepares its next attack, its body convulsing as it builds up pressure. Suddenly, it spits out a massive glob of corrosive fluid, activating its skill, Acid Liquor. The attack strikes the protagonist with devastating precision, burning through his yellow body and dealing a massive 27 points of damage, physically splitting him into two separate puddles. Stunned and divided, the protagonist momentarily wonders if his consciousness automatically stays in the larger half of his separated body, but quickly dismisses the philosophical thought as the situation is far too critical for such distractions. The snail looms over him, letting out a terrifying screech as it opens a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth, looking like a completely different monster than the cute creature it pretended to be. Without hesitation, the snail slams its face into the puddle of slime and begins to devour the protagonist. As he is being eaten, the protagonist decides to endure the pain, telling himself that he must survive this moment to take revenge later. The snail swallows a mouthful of the yellow slime and pauses for a moment. However, Its eyes immediately glow with a menacing red light, indicating it is not finished and intends to consume the rest of him. In a desperate move, the protagonist secretly wraps a tentacle around the stem of a purple poisonous mushroom lying nearby. As the snail lunges forward with its mouth wide open to take another bite, the protagonist activates his burst skill. Using the sudden propulsion, he shoves the poisonous mushroom directly into the snail's gaping maw. The snail bites down on the toxic fungus. The effect is instantaneous. Purple veins bulge across the snail's white skin as the poison floods its system. It writhes in agony, foaming at the mouth as the toxin destroys it from the inside. Finally, the massive snail collapses, dead. The system notifies the protagonist that the target has been defeated, awarding him enough experience points to advance from level 5 to level 6. Catching his breath, the protagonist explains his winning strategy. He had noticed that the snail always used acid to melt the mushrooms before eating them. He deduced this was because the snail had no poison resistance and couldn't eat them raw. By forcing the raw, poisonous mushroom down its throat, he exploited its fatal weakness. The slime mold laughs next to the acid snail's corpse, celebrating his first monster kill in this new world. Curious about the rewards for decomposing a monster, he slides his yellow body onto the snail's white flesh. However, he quickly recoils, finding the snail meat sticky and disgusting. He tells himself to treat it like beef or French cuisine, and activates his dissolution skill to begin. But the moment he tastes it, he is horrified. He internally screams that it's awful, with a salty, sour flavor and a texture like thick snot. The experience is so awful he stops. A system window announces that decomposition has failed and no experience points were gained. He looks at the corpse, conflicted. He considers throwing it away but feels it would waste a victory he risked his life for. He reminds himself that he must get stronger quickly and cannot afford to be a picky eater. He decides to endure it, figuratively holding his nose, though he notes he has none, and forces himself to swallow the foul meal. The forest fills with his sounds of retching as he struggles to keep the disgusting food down, looking like a glitching mess of slime. He forces himself to continue, eating the snail meat along with some nearby mushrooms. When he finally finishes, the system announces the decomposition is complete. He gains enough experience to level up from 6 to 7, and his body recovers. Despite the system's claim, he feels terrible. He lies in a melted puddle by the empty red shell, feeling worse than before he ate. He checks his status screen. He has 1.4 skill points, and his skills are Decomposition level 6, Pulsation level 3, Poison resistance level 3, and Burst level 1. He analyzes what his skills mean in practice, equating decomposition to simply eating. He cynically translates his other skills. Pulsation is running away, Poison resistance is getting beaten up, and Burst is also running away. The slime mold accepts his reality, telling himself complaining is useless for his species. He imagines powerful forest predators like the giant hornet as muscular giants. He reasons that with his low stats, he couldn't provoke them, even if he had attack skills. Focusing on survival, he decides to upgrade his pulsation skill again. The skill advances to level 4, and he eagerly tests how much faster he has become. He pushes his slime body as fast as possible, measuring his movement across the wood. He finds his new top speed is 20 centimeters per second. However, when he calculates this is only 0.78 kilometers per hour, he despairs, realizing he is still incredibly slow despite his efforts. A week later, the protagonist is lounging inside a hollow log holding a red mushroom. He reflects that while the log was safe, he has exhausted the local food and only gained 2 levels. It is time to find a new base. Before leaving, he decides on one last large scavenge to fill his stomach and inventory. He activates Search. By flattening his body into a vein-like network, he can explore multiple directions at once. His search range grows with his health points. His yellow body spreads across the forest floor like a living map. The system notifies him that he has stored 3 white mushrooms inside his body. He expands his reach, snagging 6 small grass mushrooms. He explains that with his body control, he can either store items or decompose them instantly, increasing his efficiency as he consumes a cluster of blue mushrooms. The slime mold continues foraging by consuming a large blue mushroom. The system confirms the decomposition, granting him experience and upgrading poison resistance to level 4. While expanding his search network, his yellow tendrils hit a hard red object. The system immediately alerts him the target cannot be decomposed. Before he can react, he takes 9 points of damage from a sharp pain. He retracts his body, annoyed to find he has encountered that guy again. The attacker uses a skill called Acid Liquor, spraying a green corrosive liquid. The slime mold is grazed by the attack, taking 7 more damage, but is relieved that his upgraded speed helped him dodge most of it. The enemy is another acid snail. The protagonist notices this one is much faster and wonders if strength varies within the same species. He moves evasively, confident the snail cannot hit him again. However, the snail uses a devastating close-range attack, splattering the slime mold and dealing a massive 33 points of damage. The snail pauses, thinking it has won. But the protagonist uses this moment. He intentionally took the hit to get close and shoves a poisonous purple mushroom into the snail's mouth. He mocks the creature, thinking it's easy to defeat once its weakness is known, citing the gap in intelligence between them. The plan works instantly. The acid snail convulses as poison spreads through its body. The protagonist consumes the defeated foe, again enduring the disgusting taste. The system rewards him for the kill, leveling him from 9 to 10. He sits in a melted pile, feeling terrible from the meal, but admitting the massive experience from monsters makes it worthwhile. After a bit, the slime mold leaves the acid snail's red shell behind and continues his journey across the grassy forest. As he moves, he hears a rustling sound from the dense grass ahead. Assuming it's another weak snail, he arrogantly calls out, commanding the hidden creature to reveal itself. To his shock, the creature that bursts from the grass is not a snail, but a massive, terrifying, blade-legged centipede. The slime mold freezes as the towering insect casts a menacing shadow over him. The centipede twitches its sharp blue legs, creating a rhythmic, intimidating sound. Terrified, the protagonist hides behind a rock, trembling and realizing he has made a mistake. The centipede lunges down to strike. In a panic, the protagonist tries his previous winning strategy. He holds up a poisonous mushroom, yelling for the monster to stay back. However, the strategy fails. The centipede's sharp mandibles instantly slice the mushroom in half before it can be eaten. The protagonist stares in disbelief as the sliced mushroom falls, realizing his trick is useless against this enemy. The monster follows up with a skill called Myriapod Blade Strangle, wrapping its long body around the slime and squeezing. The centipede buries its head into the yellow slime, trying to bite and tear the protagonist apart. However, the situation turns. The centipede struggles, unable to inflict damage. The protagonist realizes his liquid body is immune to blade attacks and constriction. The predator becomes the prey as the slime mold engulfs the trapped insect. He happily accepts the delivered experience points and consumes it. Emboldened by this victory, the protagonist continues hunting, spotting a large green beetle on a rock. He then tries to strike a flying hornet, but laments that he is still too short to reach it. He then spots a cockroach, but with pure disgust, decides to let it go simply because he doesn't want to eat it. Sometime later, the protagonist travels through the forest in high spirits, humming with a red mushroom in his mouth. He opens his status window, revealing great growth. He is now a level 13 slime mold with 157 health points. His skills have also improved. Pulsation is level 8, and poison resistance is level 5. He leans back on some moss, happy with how fast he's leveling since eating meat, and feeling confident in his abilities again. The slime mold visualizes his place in the food chain, above insects but still below lizards, frogs, and the terror bird. He decides it's time to aim higher and hunt giant frog legs. Confident, he imagines growing unstoppable, picturing himself on a pile of insect corpses and dreaming of ruling this other world. He arrives at the edge of a murky pond in the swamp forest. He observes the water, wondering if valuable resources are hidden below and if he can dive in to explore. Deciding to learn by doing, he dips a yellow tendril into the water. The reaction is immediate and painful. His body swells like a balloon and he panics, feeling like he is about to explode. Through osmotic pressure, he learns that as a single-celled organism, fresh water rushes into his cells. He realizes he will burst and die if submerged, just like a red blood cell. He quickly retracts his limb, relieved but forced to abandon his underwater plan. Suddenly, bubbles rise from the pond. A large, dark green crustacean slowly emerges from the water. Confused, the protagonist identifies the creature as a crab. The creature stares blankly, bubbling foam from its mouth. His confusion turns to hunger as he imagines a plate of steamed crab. After so many disgusting bugs, he excitedly thinks this is finally normal food. He tries to trick the creature, calling from the shore in a friendly voice to make friends. However, the crab ignores him and climbs onto a steep rock in the water. It sits there, blowing bubbles from its mouth. He realizes the crab won't come to him. He decides risking his life in the water isn't worth it. Instead, he plans to dissolve poisonous mushrooms and pour the toxin into the water to kill the crab remotely. The giant swamp crab uses bubble barrage, firing a high-pressure water beam from its mouth. The stream hits the slime mold with tremendous force, knocking him back. The attack deals 25 health points. The protagonist is shocked that a simple water gun can hurt him so badly. The crab fires again. The slime mold tries to dodge but takes another 10 damage as he scrambles away. He slides behind a large tree root, blocking the incoming water blasts. Breathing hard, He realizes this opponent is far stronger than the insects he's been farming. He decides running now would make him a target, so he hides and waits, hoping the crab will lose patience. Suddenly, a loud splash is heard as the crab jumps off its perch. The protagonist peeks out from behind the tree, wondering if the monster has finally given up. To his horror, the giant swamp crab climbs out of the pond and onto land. The crab snaps its claws aggressively. It activates Dash, scuttling sideways with terrifying speed to close the distance. The protagonist watches in shock as the predator rushes toward his hiding spot. Realizing the crab wants to eat him, the slime mold panics and frantically climbs the tree trunk. The slime mold clings to the tree, looking down at the crab. He feels relieved, thinking he can avoid the water attacks by climbing. He regrets how quickly he became the prey instead of the hunter. A chittering sound from above interrupts his relief. He looks up to see a large, pale spider with red eyes climbing down toward him. Unthreatened, the protagonist dismissively waves a tentacle, telling the spider to move as he's busy with the crab. He arrogantly warns the spider not to be ungrateful, boasting he has eaten plenty of bugs like it. The spider does not back down. It hisses aggressively, its red eyes glowing. The spider suddenly uses Arachnid Slash, its front leg striking like a blade with blinding speed. To his shock, the attack slices through his body, severing a large chunk of slime and dealing 30 damage. The spider catches and eats the severed slime. The protagonist is bewildered, thinking he was immune to blades. A status window reveals the level 16. Spider Monster has swordsmanship level 8. Before he can process this, a blast of high-pressure water strikes the tree trunk inches from him. The splash hits him for another 17 damage. He realizes he's trapped between the sword-wielding spider above and the water-gunning crab below. He looks up at the terrifying spider blocking his path. Cursing his terrible luck, tears well up in his eye as he realizes he's trapped in another dead end. On the ground, the giant swamp crab aims and fires another bubble barrage up the tree. The protagonist dodges at the last second. The water beam misses him and hits the spider monster in the face. The force of the blast knocks the spider off the tree. The spider monster lands below, furious at the unprovoked attack. It immediately retaliates by shooting a stream of white webbing at the crab. The arachnid silk shot hits the giant swamp crab, hindering its movements. Seizing the opening, the spider monster leaps down and uses Arachnid Slash on the crab's hard shell. The crab defends with Crustacean Carapace, hardening its shell to block the spider's leg. The crab counterattacks with Crustacean Clamp, snapping its claws, while the spider uses Arachnid Silk Control to dodge the pincers. The crab is annoyed by the sticky webs binding its claws. Meanwhile, high in the tree, the protagonist watches the chaos. He internally celebrates that his plan to turn his enemies against each other has succeeded. Below, the battle rages on. The crab bubbles at the mouth, struggling to rip the webbing off its claws. The spider monster seizes the moment, delivering a precise slash to the crab's eye stalk. It causes a burst of light and pain. The spider hisses, ready to follow up. But the giant swamp crab swings its massive claw violently, forcing the spider to dodge a heavy blow. The agile spider monster leaps into the air, avoiding the crab's clumsy attacks. The giant swamp crab struggles on the ground, its massive claw bound by thick white webbing. Taking advantage of the crab's immobility, the spider uses Arachnid Silk Control, moving at blinding speed to wrap the crustacean in a silk prison. The crab is soon helpless and fully cocooned, while the spider climbs its shell to claim victory. From the tree, the protagonist, Slime Mold, watches in surprise. He thinks the stinky crab is tied up like one from a grocery store and is amazed the little spider turned the tables on the larger predator. The spider looms over the crab's face, ready to feast. The crab stares back, foam bubbling from its mouth. The bubbles gather quickly, glowing with a strange pressure. Suddenly, a huge blade of compressed water erupts from the crab's mouth with a deafening sound, slicing through the air. The attack creates a whirlwind of water blades, instantly shredding the silk cocoon. Caught in the blast, the spider monster is immediately sliced into pieces in midair. The crab's desperate counterattack unleashes a storm of water cutters in all directions. A stray water blade slices the tree trunk, missing the protagonist by inches. He shivers, realizing the crab's survival instincts triggered a devastating hidden power. Below, the giant swamp crab collapses from exhaustion, spitting a final weak stream of water as its adrenaline fades. The battle ends with the spider monster as a pile of limbs and the crab lying motionless, drained of energy. The protagonist peeks from behind the tree roots, waiting for the terrifying water attacks to stop before he moves. Once the chaotic three-way battle is over, the forest falls silent. The spider monster is in pieces, and the giant swamp crab lies helpless in its webbing. Seeing the danger has passed, the protagonist, Slime Mold, emerges from his hiding spot. He approaches the immobilized crab, mocking it for wasting its energy shooting water wildly and ending up in a pathetic state. However, he faces a dilemma on how to finish the sturdy creature. Suffocating it is too dangerous, and he can't force mushrooms into its clamped mouth. He decides to act quickly before the crab recovers. Looking for a weapon, his gaze lands on a large, heavy rock nearby. He spreads his body over the stone, trying to absorb it into his inventory using slime space. But a system error flashes: insufficient space. He realizes his storage size depends on his health points, which are too low after the battle for the rock to fit. Choosing the kill over his hoard, he vomits his entire mushroom collection to free up inventory space. With his inventory cleared, he successfully absorbs the massive rock into his body. The immense weight makes his yellow body bulge, and he hits the ground with a heavy thud. He complains about the weight but pushes on, dragging his heavy rock-filled body. He slowly climbs the tree, positioning himself high above the trapped monster. He looks down at the crab, declaring he has come to take its life. Using gravity, the protagonist lets go of the tree and drops like a stone toward the target. The giant swamp crab looks up in terror at the massive yellow object falling from the sky. In a last effort, it shoots one final high-pressure water stream from its mouth. The water jet hits the falling rock and slime, but its momentum is too great. The protagonist endures the damage, determined to crush his enemy. The crab braces for impact as the shadow falls over it. With a deafening crash, the rock-filled slime mold slams into the crab's shell, creating a massive shockwave. The dust settles, showing the protagonist on the crushed crab shell. The system confirms the kill, awarding him enough experience for level 14 and 0.5 skill points. Overjoyed by his survival and victory, the protagonist laughs maniacally, celebrating his triumph as the last one standing. Without wasting a moment, he settles on his fresh kill, happily announcing it's time to feast. The protagonist, Slime Mold, eagerly prepares to enjoy his hard-won meal, sitting on the crab's overturned shell like a chef. He arranges the crab's organs and roe in the shell like a soup bowl, and uses a piece of leg meat as a utensil, ignoring the spider's remains. He dips the white crab meat into the rich, yellow roe, ready to dig in. His first bite overwhelms him with flavor. After days of eating moldy wood, snails, and insects, the fresh seafood taste is a flavor explosion in his mind. Tears stream down his slimy face as he realizes good food heals the soul. He renews his vow to survive in this dangerous world to find more delicious food. He eats everything, leaving no waste, and lies back on a log, stuffed and satisfied. A status window shows he is now level 14 with 168 health points. He feels fully recharged and energetic. With his hunger gone, the protagonist decides to use his new energy for an experiment. He sits before a rock, focusing on his internal body structure. He squeezes his body muscles tightly, straining with all his might. His single eye bulges from the pressure as he tries to force something out, screaming internally from the effort. Panting, he glares at the rock, commanding the power to come out. He recalls the crab's bubble barrage attack, reasoning that skills can be learned through practice. The crab compressed water to shoot it, and he figures a slime mold should be able to do it too. With new determination, he squeezes his internal fluids again, chanting for the attack to appear. The protagonist tries to copy the crab's attack by squeezing his body. He strains, but only a few weak squirts shoot from his backside in the wrong direction. He tries again, aiming forward with straining noises, but the yellow liquid only dribbles out weakly. Exhausted, he melts into a puddle. He complains that he can't control the liquid's direction or force, feeling defeated, but his frustration turns to determination. Refusing to fail, he tenses his whole body, compressing his internal fluids to the limit. Suddenly, a high-speed jet of yellow fluid shoots from his body with great force, activating his Burst Level 1 skill. The projectile hits the crab's shell, piercing a hole through it. The system announces his Burst skill has evolved into a new attack, Cytoplasm Jet. The system explains the skill uses his internal cytoplasm to launch his own body mass as a projectile. The protagonist laughs, thrilled that he can evolve skills through practice. He pauses, suddenly worried. He recalls his previous skills had a 5-minute cooldown and wonders if this attack does too. To test it, he quickly fires 2 more shots. To his delight, he fires a rapid barrage, piercing the crab shell repeatedly. The system confirms the skill has no cooldown. After firing continuously, the skill upgrades to level 2. However, he realizes the power's heavy cost. He is shriveled into a thin stick. A system alert warns his health is critical because each shot uses his own biomass, health points, as ammo. He realizes that with no magic, his body is his only combat resource. A bit disappointed he can't be a mage, he eats the crab to recover his lost mass. While eating, he has an idea. If eating restores him, what if he ate the parts of himself that were cut off earlier? He searches and finds a large chunk of his yellow slime on the grass. The piece looks surprisingly large, and he wonders if he lost that much mass when the spider sliced him. To test his theory, he touches the separated piece to his main body, activating reclamation. As he absorbs the piece, he experiences memories from its perspective. He sees himself fighting the spider and dropping the rock, but from the outside, realizing the severed piece had its own consciousness. Slime Mold realizes something brilliant about his body. Severed parts, though lacking consciousness, can decompose things independently. By reabsorbing them later, he can collect the health and experience they've gathered. Delighted, he hums a tune, thinking he has found a bug or exploit in the system. He imagines sending out multiple fragments to work in different locations, turning his single mouth into many to drastically increase his leveling speed. He immediately tests this theory using division. A piece of his yellow body separates, costing him 10 health points. But both his main body and the split part look weak. He realizes a limitation. If his health drops below 30, he enters a dangerous state of starvation. With a max health of 198, he reasons that with enough food to replenish his health, he can create as many clones as he wants. He strains his body. He forcefully rips a large chunk of slime from his main form, taking 30 damage to create a substantial clone. The separated yellow blob wiggles and moves on its own, confirming the experiment's success. He imagines himself wearing a ninja headband, realizing the ability is like the shadow clone technique from a famous manga. Excited, he raises a fist and declares it's time to start working. He commands one small slime clone to decompose a dead log. He directs others to a nearby mushroom pile. His status screen shows he's a level 14 slime mold with 198 HP and skills like decomposition, pulsation, poison resistance, and cytoplasm jet. He's satisfied with his strategy. Send out clones to farm resources while he stays back, eating leftover spider meat to keep his main body safe and at full health. Mastering his body, he imagines himself in a cool, humanoid armored form, feeling incredibly strong. He analyzes combat, visualizing a normal thrust from a weapon passing through him harmlessly. He reasons even a normal slash, or a powerful energy slash would fail, as his liquid body would just reconnect. He concludes physical attacks can't threaten him, but his expression turns serious as he considers the one thing he still fears. He contemplates his physical immunity, wondering if he's invincible. He imagines being hit by a magic attack, questioning if magic could kill him since physical attacks fail. He wonders if he hasn't seen magic yet because this world is just a wilder animal kingdom. He sets a trap in the murky water, using small pieces of his yellow body as bait to lure in prey. A giant swamp crab bursts from the water, snatching the bait. However, he has laid a trail of slime chunks leading from the water into the grass. A group of crabs follows the trail of food, unaware they are being led into a kill zone. The crabs continue to feast on the yellow lumps, moving further inland. High above, he clings to a tree, watching the crabs gather below as they finish the bait trail. The crabs suddenly look up, noticing a massive shadow falling over them. He pushes the tree branch, again using gravity as his weapon. The branch crashes down with devastating force, instantly smashing the crabs. He celebrates on the branch as the system spams notifications. Defeating 6 crabs at once gives him enough experience to go from level 14 to level 15. He drops to the ground, finishes off any survivors with a rock, and prepares to eat. After decomposing the crab meat, his health is fully restored. He looks at the clean shells, satisfied with his efficient farming method. Now at a higher level, he decides to practice combat, setting up a crab shell against a rock as a target. In his mind, he's a cool gunslinger preparing to fire a skill he calls Plasmodial Barrage. In reality, he unleashes a rapid storm of yellow slime bullets, peppering the target with speed and force. The target smokes from the impact, and the system announces his Plasmodial Barrage, Cytoplasm Jet, skill leveled up from 5 to 6. However, the intensive training takes a toll. The protagonist is shown shriveled and dried out, his health critically low due to using his own body mass as ammunition. As he eats a mushroom to recover from the autophagy state, he notes that after 2 days of hard training, both the power and accuracy of his attacks have significantly improved. He analyzes his stamina, noting he can only fire 30 cytoplasm jet shots before his health is at risk. He wonders how to make them more lethal without using more of his body. An idea strikes him as he picks up a poisonous mushroom and a rock, deciding to add ingredients to his ammunition. He theorizes that wrapping a poisonous mushroom in the slime projectile can inflict poison damage from a distance. Similarly, encasing a rock within the slime will significantly increase the shot's physical impact. He tests this immediately, firing a rock-infused shot that hits the target with a loud crack, proving its power. Pleased, he arrogantly calls himself a genius for inventing such a versatile attack. A soft cooing interrupts his celebration. He sees a strange light in a nearby tree hollow and wonders if it's a bird or fireflies. Curious, he approaches the tree to investigate the noise. He climbs up the trunk and peeks directly into the glowing hole. To his shock, he's face to face with a spectral, glowing blue owl. Its magical aura terrifies him. He instantly panics, screaming internally. His worst fear has come true. He has found a monster that can use magic. Fearing a spell, he drops from the tree and frantically slithers away to escape. But the owl doesn't chase him. It sits quietly in the tree, watching him flee. This is not a wild beast, but a magical skill called symbiotic scrying. Far away, a human woman looks through her hand like a telescope. Her right eye glows with the same blue light as the owl, showing she shares its vision. She rides a large armored boar with two other adventurers. When a bearded man asks if she found anything, she lowers her hand and replies she saw nothing important, just a strange little monster. The group of human adventurers moves through the forest. The pink-haired scout finds it strange they haven't seen any high-level monsters. The bearded warrior tells Little Steelback to stay sharp and lead the way, worried that their magical link to the guildmaster is cut off. Meanwhile, the slime mold panics, fleeing as fast as possible. Believing the owl spotted him, he's terrified of provoking a magic user and knows he can't mess with that guy. He reaches a river, hoping to be safe on the other side, but he is unsure how to cross the gap. Remembering physics and the momentum theorem, he launches himself into the air. In mid-flight, he activates his plasmodial barrage skill. Instead of attacking, he fires the slime projectiles backward for propulsion. The move works, but costs him 80 points of self-damage as he rockets forward. The force propels him high through the trees, clearing the river easily. He crashes on the other side, exhausted but relieved, thinking he has escaped the danger. He eats dead wood to recover health, realizing that while strong for his level, a higher-tier opponent would instantly kill him. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure descends on him, a dark, fiery red aura. He freezes, feeling a presence more terrifying than the snake-tailed terror bird. He assumes the magic owl has found him. He slowly turns but realizes the source of the fear is not the owl. Lying on the forest floor is a colossal, severed claw with white scales and a black nail. It is massive enough to crush the trees beneath it. He stares in confusion, his single eye trying to process what he sees, a giant finger. His fear turns to euphoric greed. He sees the limb as a legendary golden finger, a story term for a cheat-like power-up. He knows that if he absorbs this high-level monster part, he will gain immense power and possibly achieve a massive evolution. He laughs maniacally at his luck. He immediately tries to consume the golden finger, spreading his body over the scales and activating his dissolution skill to absorb its power. He wraps his slime tendrils around the object, trying to break down the surface. However, he struggles to digest it, finding the process difficult and painful. A system alert flashes. Decomposition failed. His skill is too low or the level gap is too vast. The target's invulnerability triggers, and its overwhelming power repels his cells. Instead of gaining experience, he takes continuous damage, 10, 20, 10, as the finger's energy burns him. Realizing he is killing himself, he activates autotomy, severing the connection to escape. A chunk of his body flies off as he recoils from the failed meal. He looks at the finger with regret, seeing only tiny +1 experience points. He curses himself for not upgrading his decomposition skill. He laments his situation, feeling like he has a great treasure he can't use. He realizes he can't decompose it, and his inventory is too small to carry it. He decides to leave it, grind levels to max out his skill, and return for it later. Just as he makes this plan, the ground begins to rumble violently beneath him. The severed finger suddenly activates, glowing with energy and rocketing off the ground. It tears through the earth, flying straight up and crashing through the forest canopy. He watches in shock as his golden finger flies away on its own. The launch sends shockwaves and debris flying. He spots a blast heading his way, realizing he's caught in the crossfire. The blast strikes the ground near him, creating a massive crater. He barely survives, trembling in the aftermath. Terrified by the power he witnessed, he huddles under a tree root, lamenting how scary the world is. He realizes the further he travels, the more insignificant he feels. He abandons his arrogance and returns to his roots, hiding and decomposing dead wood to grow stronger safely. Beneath him, the earth shows worms, gems, and a buried mimic monster waiting in the dark. Deep underground, the severed finger has landed after burrowing through the earth. In the darkness, the finger sits silently before erupting with a terrifying red and black aura, revealing it's not just a body part, but something sinister and alive. The slime mold checks his mental map. The golden finger is far northeast and the magical owl is southwest, placing him in a safe zone within the dense forest. He finds a thick tree to establish a temporary base, planning to rest and retrieve his clones the next day. With his dissolution skill, he attaches to the trunk and starts melting through the bark. He plans a narrow entrance to block large monsters, while making the inside spacious and comfortable. He imagines wearing a hard hat and eagerly starts his excavation project. He dissolves the wood layer by layer, tunneling deep into the tree. For light, he plants a luminous mushroom, which emits a weak poison with its blue glow. Exhausted but satisfied, he collapses on a moss bed he gathered. He admires his finished home, now with a stone table for food and bathed in the mushroom's light. His temporary base has a clever design. A poison mushroom plugs the entrance, a tunnel leads to a fake decoy chamber below, and a hidden passage connects to his real safe chamber above. Feeling triumphant, the slime mold flexes a tentacle holding a twig. He lies on his moss bed, chewing the twig like a cigar, enjoying the feeling of a secure home. His relaxation is cut short by a loud, rhythmic buzzing that vibrates through the wood, annoying him. Angry, he pokes his head out of the hollow and yells at the noise to stop. He sees a massive swarm of wasps in the canopy. Instead of fear, he observes their numbers and gets an idea. Giant wasps zoom through the forest, patrolling their territory. The slime fires a cytoplasm jet from his hiding spot, smashing one of the wasps in midair. He then sits openly at his base's entrance, acting as bait and taunting the swarm to provoke them. Enraged, the swarm dives at the tree, thrusting their stingers into the slime. He quickly retracts deep into the narrow hole, causing the wasps to miss or get their stingers stuck. They furiously attack the entrance, unaware of his trap. Safe inside his fortress, the protagonist sighs with relief. He discovers his sticky body acts like flypaper. The attacking wasps get trapped and the system notifies him he's gaining experience points effortlessly. Seeing his plan work, he gets more ambitious. He stops attacking and lets 2 survivors fly away. He quietly follows them through the forest to a massive wasp nest high in the canopy. From a branch, he observes their home base. His eye narrows as he plots to destroy the nest. He reveals himself, catching the attention of the sentry bees. The sentries release a pheromone signal, alerting the colony. A loud buzzing fills the air as thousands of wasps pour out. He stands his ground, thinking that since stings are useless against his body, more enemies just mean more experience points. But the wasps use an unexpected strategy. They swarm him, forming a tight, vibrating ball and flapping their wings in unison. The friction creates intense heat, like an oven. A system warning flashes. The temperature is critical, and his cells are dying. He panics, taking continuous damage, shocked the wasps can cook him alive. Refusing to be cooked, the slime mold retaliates with his plasmodial barrage. The slime projectiles shred the wasp workers and break their formation. The battle shifts when a new enemy appears. A heavy unit that blocks his shots with a beeswax shield. The armored insect charges, its amber shield deflecting the once lethal slime bullets. He clings to the branch, realizing the hive's main guards are much stronger than the scouts he fought earlier. His eye widens in shock. He spots a unique, white-furred insect with a wooden staff. It waves its staff, conjuring a glowing magical circle overhead. The swarm summon skill activates. A massive army descends from the hive, raining down on the terrified slime. The enemy hierarchy is clear. Wasp workers, defensive wasp guards, and a wasp mage commander. He trembles, realizing he faces an evolved form using magic, his greatest fear. The wasp mage coldly issues a command. Armored wasp guards dive toward the slime to execute him. He unleashes his plasmodial barrage, firing yellow fluid at the incoming army. The attack is effective, blasting the insects from the sky across the canopy. But the sheer number of enemies forces him to fire non-stop, draining his biomass. His health drops 10 points per shot and his body shrivels. To sustain the assault, he uses a clever strategy. While firing, he anchors himself to the branch and uses decomposition to drain nutrients from the wood, regenerating 10 HP per tick to offset the cost. Despite his infinite ammo, the wasp guards press their attack. One raises its beeswax shield, deflecting the shots. He is frustrated, knowing he needs his last stone to reinforce a projectile and break their defense. Seeing his attacks fail, 2 wasp guards dive to finish the job. They crash into him, stabbing his gooey body. But physical contact is his specialty. He mocks the soldiers for delivering themselves to his door, as his body entraps them. The guards get stuck in the fluid, their armor dissolving as he decomposes them alive. After decomposing the enemies, he decides to claim the spoils. His inventory updates with wasp spears and a wasp needle from the guards. But a system alert warns his storage is full, so he must use the items now. He improvises, enveloping a sharp wasp spear in his slime as a projectile core. He spins it rapidly for stability and power. He fires the enhanced shot at a wasp guard. It shatters the beeswax shield and skewers the soldier behind it. Seeing its guard destroyed, the wasp mage realizes its defenses are beaten. It waves its staff. Obeying, The entire swarm breaks formation and flies back to the hive, abandoning the assault. He remains on the branch watching them leave. He scoffs, believing they retreated because they feared his power.
This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.